Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and I finally come to the end. It is the end of the Heebie Jeebies series by Rod Randall and Paul Buchanan. This is the last book in the series, book number 10, Return to Terror Cove by Paul Buchanan. Now, this book, it is the end of the Heebie Jeebies series, which the Heebie Jeebies series is a Christian spooky kind of Goosebumps knockoff series that came out in the late 90s and early 2000s, kind of around the time of series 2000 of Goosebumps. So it's a little bit of an interesting vibe, and it's very different from the other Christian spooky book series for middle grade called Spine Chillers or Spine Chillers Mysteries by Freddie Katz. These have been more intense. There's been actual danger in these books, and they've had some pretty good entries in this series. Whereas I would say Spine Chillers, there's like a couple good ones, but overall they're more just goofy than anything else. They're not exactly scary ever, except for a couple of them, like I said. Birthday Cake and Ice Cream, that is a good Spine Chillers book. In this series, my favorite, well, I can't quite tell you my favorite yet because I'm going to be doing a video now ranking all 10 of the Heebie Jeebies series. But let's talk about Return to Terror Cove because this one is a little interesting and there's some stuff we gotta talk about. So first of all, this book is about these two kids, Danny and Josh, who live on this coastal town. Danny lives up in a lighthouse on the coast, and his friend Josh lives in town at a motel that operates out in the town. He lives on the top floor with his family. So it creates a really great couple of settings for this book. So this small coastal town, there was a movie that had been filmed here years and years and years ago called Terror Cove. And there's a special showing at the local movie theater of Terror Cove that Danny and Josh are going to go see. So they go to see the movie. Danny's never seen it before, but Josh has. So they're watching the movie. They recognize all the places in town. They're seeing all the different things. In this movie, it's like a creature feature kind of thing with this giant tentacle monster that is attacking the town and eating the people and doing all the things that, happen. And then there's a scientist who comes up with an atomic proto-ray gun thing that can zap the creature and get rid of it, blah, 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 blah. Well, after seeing the movie, Danny and Josh notice some weird things happening in town. For instance, one of the neighbors' houses has a broken window, and the neighbors are gone, and Danny is wondering where they are. In fact, he knows that his friend who lives in that house was not going out of town and was going to do something with him just in a couple of days. So, where is he? And then he realizes that the house that they lived in was a house that was in the movie that got broken apart by the monster in the bay. And then thing after thing after thing keeps happening that's just like the movie. Some kind of monster creature appears to be in the bay and is attacking during storms. So Danny and Josh decide we gotta find out what's going on and stop the creature. And it just goes from there. Now, I gotta say, the setup in this book was pretty good. And I thought that this was a great atmosphere. It was a super spooky setting. I thought that the movie and tying that into the town, all of that worked so well and just was like firing on all cylinders. And I thought, wow, this is pretty good and pretty well done. So I really enjoyed that. I will say though, near the last third of this book, there is a character who comes into play that almost makes it start to feel totally different and a lot more kind of goofy than it did before, and I didn't really like it. I kept thinking, oh, why have you brought this character in? I don't like this character. I think they're kind of just a goon in a way, just kind of silly and goofy and not really seeming to fit with the rest of what's happening here. So I felt like the story started to drag a tiny bit when this character came in. I will say though, there are some great sequences, especially near the end. There's a wonderful storm sequence that was so well done. And I will also say the twist ending was pretty good. I thought, oh, that's very believable, but also really scary. And I think that that's a really great idea for this particular story. Now, I do also have to say, these creatures on the front, I was wondering, why are these creatures on the front of this book? Because I'll just tell you right now, these creatures are not in the book anywhere. And they're not even in the Terror Cove movie. And so I was wondering, why are these creatures on the front of the book? This doesn't make any sense. It's just kind of random. So I will say that that was a little bit odd to me, whereas the other books, the covers have often really fit well with the story, but this one just didn't have anything to do with the storyline at all. So I thought that was kind of odd. I also have to unfortunately bring up, there is a couple of things that happen in this book that I thought, oh, I don't like that. That's not very safe. So in a sense, I'm going to try and do this without spoilers. There is a couple of characters who end up going into a situation that I just kept thinking, that's not a safe situation, because you don't know what's going on there. You don't know that person. You don't know what's happening there. And that's not a safe thing to do. And I kind of thought it might be a tiny bit irresponsible to have the storyline go there, because kids are reading this book and it's never portrayed as problematic that the kids are in this particular situation. Like, the parents don't scold them, the parents aren't saying anything about it, even the police in the story not saying anything about it. It just kind of is. And I just kept thinking, oh, that's kind of unfortunate that this last book, whereas the rest of the series has not done anything like this. And so it was kind of odd to me that this happened in this particular book. There's also some outdated language in this book that I thought, oh, I wish you hadn't used that word. So it uses a couple of words a couple of times that are outdated and considered offensive today, that back in the time a lot of people did say a lot, but still I personally don't think was very kind to say. So it's really unfortunate that this particular book uses that word when none of the other ones ever have. So there was a little bit of a couple odd things here at the end. And it's really unfortunate because I think the rest of the storyline is pretty solid. Like I said, what's happening, the twist, is really good and pretty scary, and it has some great sequences that are pretty ominous. I will say there were some creepy moments in this book that I thought, that's actually pretty scary. So it always comes down to the question of, when you're reading older books, what do you do with those kinds of sequences, those kinds of scenes? I think here it's easy to read past those couple of things. In fact, the situation, some people might not even think about it and just think, oh, I don't know, I didn't even think about that. But I will say it's easy to read past them. But I think if you're going to let a kid read this book, then you should definitely have a conversation with them about that situation and about that term that's used in the book. And I think if you are offended by those sorts of things, then this might be one to skip, or when you come to it, just skip past it. It only happens twice in the book, but I felt like it was worth mentioning just because this is an older book and some things can be offensive to people. So it's just important to be aware, I think, of those sorts of things. But overall, I did enjoy this book. I still liked the storyline. I thought, like I said, it was a creepy atmosphere and a really, really great idea. I don't think this is Paul Buchanan's strongest in the series. Definitely not the worst. That's for sure. I can tell you what the worst was, but I don't even need to. So, this one, it was another Heebie Jeebies entry. So at the end of the day, I gotta give this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Like I said, good storyline, great setting, good action sequences, a great twist ending. But some other problems, like that character who came in that was just kind of annoying in the last third, as well as that situation that was just kind of odd and not really dealt with, I think, in a great way, and then that term that was used. So I just think that because of those things, this one kind of bumps down, unfortunately. I wish it had been a little better, because I really was excited about the fact that the series really turned around after Wild Ride on Bigfoot Mountain, book number 6, which really was the weakest of the series. So I think that at the end of the day, 3 out of 5 stars is definitely where this one lands. So until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye!